Everybody, this is the voice of Bold Business Radio. And of course, you know that you're here right now. And like every Tuesday, when we live stream, we have a special guest here. This is an exciting day for me for two reasons. Probably more than two, but I'm going to limit it to two. Those of you who watch on a regular basis know that as well. The first is this is Gary Barnes. And Gary Barnes and I met through a common network connection and have really hit it off and have found ways to continue to have conversations and build and support each other in different ways. And I love having that modeled to me and seeing what true collaboration and even more than collaboration support looks like. The second is he has so much experience. And when I was preparing this show, I have to tell you, this concept of time, energy, and money shows up in all aspects of what I was doing. And I was like, hey, who else better to ask than Gary Barnes, the Breakthrough Business Mastery Coach, about time, energy, and money? Because you all have the same questions I do. And together we are building not only the role that we play, the leader that we are, getting the results that we want. And we have those three things in common: time, energy, and money. Woohoo! So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Gary, and you will get to meet him right after our open. Gary Barnes, as I said, is the Breakthrough Business Mastery Coach. He's also the founder of Gary Barnes International. He is a high performance business and sales coach. Not only that, he's also popular nationally and internationally as a speaker, an award-winning #1 international Amazon best-selling author. And by the way, he has 7 books. So you're going to see a few of those in the show notes when we get this all prepared after the show today. Gary's clients span over 7 countries, and he has been featured on ABC, CBS, Fox, PBS, and TEDx. We'll be right back after this to talk time, money, and energy.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Everybody, hashtag VBB Radio. Send in your questions over YouTube, over Facebook, somewhere else on like Twitter or LinkedIn. Eva is watching behind the scenes and is going to bring those in. We like audience participation and questions. And I can tell you from experience, Gary does too. Don't you, Gary?
I absolutely do. Hi, Jess.
Hi, welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is, like I was telling you behind the curtain here, this is my favorite thing to do on Tuesdays.
Well, it's becoming mine too. So it's a privilege to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to just jump right in. Okay. So when I first met you, I heard you talk for a few minutes at a networking event that we were both at. And there was something about you that I said, you know, I've got something to learn here. I just don't know what it is. And you know, he sounds like he does something that I do, but I learned yes, and yes, and yes. And boy, do we do things in different ways. So every interaction I have with you, I take something away from it and I learn it. So I want to say thank you to that. And thank you for the work that you're doing and being able and willing to share it with the Red Direction and the Voice of Bold Business Radio audience today.
Well, it's a privilege, like I said, to be here. And, you know, we're constant learners. Someone had told me a couple of days ago that, you know, I've made it and whatever. And I go, well, if I've made it, I'm on my way back. It's like climbing a peak. I mean, there's always more to know. There's more. The more that we know, the more that we know that we don't know. And when we do that, we're that constant learner. And I learn from you as well. So thank you for the connection.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, when I was preparing this show, we're talking about time, energy, and money. And actually, I keep saying them in the different order than the actual title. It's time, money, and energy is how the title goes of this show. Thinking about that, when we are overwhelmed or we're coming from a place that we're scared or unsure, we tend to adopt coping mechanisms that induce a scarcity mindset. And you know this as much as, and definitely more than most, about what a scarcity mindset can do. So how how easy is it to fall into that mindset? And then how do we get out?
You know, that's a great question because it's something that we have actually been trained to do. And that's really unfortunate because when we get into society, uh, if you look at the individuals that we say are successful, that have made it in their industries, have attained wealth or status in some way, how much negative is there about that person normally around it? And so we want to bring them back into the commonality. And so to be successful has a negative influence. And so when we have it, it's not what we want, but we have this tendency to feel like it's normal and what we deserve. And that really is a belief of not deserving that is penetrating our society. Other people deserve, if you look at, is it better to give or to receive? What would you say?
Well, okay. You just walked me right into a trap, and I talk about this all the time. It is better to give.
And we know, and you knew what I was doing.
I did. Well,
And
so I
so
played along, even though I know the right answer now.
I know. And so, but the second question is then how do you give without first receiving? And so having permission to receive, permission to step into your light, permission to have a value out there that others want to be able to benefit from, then receiving that so that we can then give to another group of individuals or to our families or to even generations that we will never meet. And so part of it is getting this part here, the 6 to 12 inches, some of us have bigger heads than others. Uh, that mindset is, what is it that we truly want? We have always heard for years and years about the big why, but truly, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the value? I think you know this piece of the story. I early on was going through chaplaincy training in a hospital. And before they would allow us to go on to the oncology, the cancer unit, or the emergency room, we had to write what was going to be on our tombstone. We had to write our epitaph, and we had to attend to our own funeral. And so, what that did for me in my early 20s was go to the end of life and say, was it all worth it? What was the piece of the puzzle that made the journey worthwhile? Because it's not the end destination. The end destination, as we know it in this lifetime, is an end to a beginning that we don't know what that is. So truly, it is the journey, and being able to allow ourselves to be the conduit and to get out of, it's not about me, but I am the subject, but not the message. And so, as our products and services are disseminated, why are we being selfish for hiding that from other people that would benefit from it?
Oh, man. Okay, so you said so much, and I don't want to ask you any other questions. I just want to stay here. So we're going to do that at least for a minute, Gary.
Okay.
There were a few things that you said. The first that comes to mind is that you planned your death and then you looked back. Talk about the ultimate vision. Talk about really being able to take a step back and go, yeah, I may not know why I'm here. Yeah, I may not have found something that I really like yet. However, I know what I would like to do. And then sometimes that's the stepping stone to the real passion or purpose or, path we're supposed to be on. Without a starting point, though, who would ever know?
And that's really true. Really, most individuals that I've encountered have never written their life mission statement. And a mission statement is not something that I have found that happens in a weekend, in an evening, in a boot camp, in a seminar, or whatever. This is something that evolves.
Yes.
But part of my mission statement is to make a difference. And another piece of it is to empower, but not my power to you, but helping individuals connect the power that I believe is already within them. And now I can back out and go, how does that design, how am I able to disseminate that? And I have other pieces of the mission statement, but to be able to really say in a base level, why do I do what I do? Or is it a Groundhog's Day experience to where it doesn't matter what I do today because tomorrow I'm destined to repeat it? And so we get into this robotic life. And then so many people that I have met over the years in my financial planning days, they have worked for 50, 60 years, they retire and die. And it was this like, and that their services, they would go, they had these dreams, these wishes, these intentions. And I'm going, well, why didn't they ever have permission to engage in them? And that is one of the saddest things that I have. There's an old saying of, don't let the song die within you. And it's same with the book that's within you, or whatever that way that you want to showcase your experience, because your experience is valuable to those around you, whether you think it. See, here's another little Garyism: what you think is ordinary, other people think is extraordinary. So don't be selfish with who you are.
Yes. Which led right back to the second thing from the first part of what you were talking about, this concept of giving without receiving and not being able to receive. But how can you ever give if you don't know what receiving is? And this cart before the horse, this egg before the chicken, the egg, right? Do you have a chicken or an egg first? Whatever that is. And it made me think of something even very much more basic, is how do I know what happy is until I have experienced sad? How do I know what peace is until I have experienced conflict?
And I think the word that I'm not hearing you say that gets in the way for a lot of people is the word total. Total
Mm,
peace. Be totally happy. And I don't think there is a total. I think it's a ever evolving. There is an ebb and flow. There are good days, bad days, but we do live in a world of duality. If we
yep.
don't have a bad day, we're not going to be able to appreciate a good day. And so it's not that we want things to happen that are not necessarily positive in our lives and in our businesses. But as I look back, everything that I have felt that was negative in my life uh, really has come to a positive as time has gone on. And it's where I have said, in fact, I did a Facebook post yesterday that says, I would not wish my life onto anyone, but I would not change anything, because I would not be the person I am today if I did.
Yes.
And so when we embrace that as being a temporary, a point in time, not an end destination, then we're able to use that and say, what is the lesson? What is it that I'm learning here? What can I benefit from? And Norman Vincent Peale used to have this saying that said, when he saw a problem coming at me, he says, where have you been all my life? I prepared for you. And it's not a negative thought. It's like, okay, what am I going to do when the storm comes? Because the storms will come. They're supposed to come. That's what re-energizes the world and feeds us and doing all the. But if we look at it as a, this is my being the Eeyore. Thanks for noticing me, and this is all I have. That just notice me a little bit, feed me a little bit, and I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I really tied into years ago. If I don't have permission to receive, no one else that I give to has permission to receive either.
Okay, let's stay there for just a minute. That's interesting because we are in, hmm, it, we got to talk about servant leadership right here, right? This is this concept. It's this big thing. Well, you've got to serve and you have to serve first and you have to serve at all costs. And by the way, there are people who model that in parenting. There are people who model that in business. There are people who model that and they don't want anything. And in fact, they prefer to remain completely and utterly anonymous. And I'm like, but you're creating a vacuum. How do we take this concept of not allowing ourselves and then making sure that everybody else feels comfortable allowing themselves? It's the biggest contradiction that I think I have come across.
It really is, and it's one that has permeated society and has not. It's taken away the ability for people to truly engage in who they are. I love watching The Voice and America's Got Talent and all these people that are 40, 50, 60 years old, and
Yes.
they come onto the stage and they have been told they don't have a voice, they don't have a talent, and then they come and they blow us all away. And there is something that I again think is really part of society, that for those that are afraid to risk, because really that's what it comes back to, is that there is a fear. If I go out and say I'm going to achieve, I'm going to build, I'm going to create something, and it doesn't happen, I'm going to feel worse than I do today.
Hmm.
And so we have this, when does it feel bad to feel good? And so feeling bad sometimes feels good because we have backed off from that stressor, that pain point. But in reality, by staying there, not having that permission to move forward, all we're doing is marking time. And
Yeah.
then, there's still a value in that human being. But I ask, here's another question for you. And you've heard this at the boot camp, is that when is an airplane, everybody knows I love airplanes. When is an airplane totally on course?
When it's standing still at the gate.
When it's on the tarmac.
Okay, I was close. Yeah. I was like, I did hear that, but I don't remember.
At the gate, they're pointing into the terminal, which I don't know why we go to a terminal to get on an airplane. I mean, I hate that. But, if we're in an airplane and we can position ourselves to be 100% on target for where we're going for our destination. But that airplane, until it takes to the air where there's risk, will never be fulfilled in the destiny that it was created for.
Right. I'm going to get real personal here. Are you ready? I am learning this right now, everybody. And everything that Gary is talking about, this is stuff that plays out in my life on an almost daily basis right now because I am not a good receiver. And I learned that. That was something that I learned. Now, it made me strong. And I talk a lot and I have a lot to say and I can connect with almost everybody. But as much as I talk, people don't really know who I am. And that's by design, even though it was unconscious. And I'm really bringing that to the surface right now. And I'm really thinking about this. And Gary, you're talking about this, and I'm like, oh, my heart is even fluttering a little bit, but I got to say this because you've just set the stage. And we all go through this, don't we? We all have to accept some sort of reinvention. And it might be a tiny step, but it also might be leaping off a building.
Absolutely. You know, I'm proud of you. I really am. And, I think it's something we all, because I deal with this myself, because I'm wanting to help people to do all these things. But if we don't take ourselves into the equation, there's a hole, like you said, there's a void that's created in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And people may be listening to our call today or watching us and saying, what does this have to do with business? Well,
Everything.
I have found that 80%
Yeah.
of building any business out there is 80% psychological and emotional. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yes.
It's not the tactics, it's not the magic bullet, it's not that one lucky break that you get. It's about how do you stay in the game? How do we stay engaged? How do we get up in the morning and when things aren't going well and have that motivation? By the way, we cannot find motivation in my mind from others. That motivation has to be internal. I can inspire someone to be motivated, but they ultimately have to take that inspiration and take it into a personal motivation.
Okay.
If I'm their motivation and I go away, I've taken that motivation away.
We're coming back to that. Before, our Scott here on the show has asked a question. Have you ever had to reinvent yourself?
Yes, many times over.
Will you tell
And
us about one?
oh, sure. When I first started out, I was going to school to be a pastor. So my early education was psychology and theology. And obviously from there, because of circumstances, I became a real estate agent. I mean, there's a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And then from that, I created one of the very first financial planning firms in the country, ran it for 33 years. I've always been a speaker. I've always been someone that's been out in front. By the way, most speakers that I know are introverts. When we get off stage, we don't want to go to parties, whatever. Everybody thinks that everybody's an introvert or extrovert, that's on stage. It's not true. Um, and then after 33 years, I sold that practice. And because people kept asking me about how did I do it, then I really did actually, it's 9 books now. I need to update my bio.
Oh, it's 9? Oh, I so
It-
apologize.
No. I gave it to you. But, and I hate writing. I had to become a writer because that was a way to be able to touch more,
Yeah.
to disseminate myself in a way. So all the way along, and also life lessons. In 1988, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I was told that in 1988, I would be dead or in a wheelchair in 10 years. Well, I tell everyone that I'm pretty ornery and I'm still here. I'm on bonus time. 29 years later, I'm still doing what they said I could not do. And that's kind of getting me to do anything. Tell me I can do it. And, normally
Oh, we are peas in a pod when it comes to that.
And
or
so,
and stick a camera in front of me. Okay.
yes.
I have no fear in front of a camera, or when somebody else is as crazy as I am and says, no, you really can't do that because, like you, Gary, we'll make it happen.
So I love that question because sometimes we think there is a model set in stone that we now then develop. But if we have that why, that if we have the ultimate, what is the impact? Maybe that's a better word. What is the impact that we want to leave for those that know us when we leave this plane, but also for future generations that we will never ever have the opportunity or pleasure to meet. And so when we start looking at that, what is that end, you know, process, whatever it looks like for you, but then we can come back and say, okay, here's these different opportunities. And in business, we have a lot of opportunities. I'm throwing a lot of concepts out here. So in my mind, you know me, I go down rabbit trails. But here's the
We're never staying on topic then.
uh, but for their question about that is that many times we get these opportunities and we say, do I need to reinvent myself to be able to take advantage of that opportunity? When we know our ultimate destination, we can use this question: does this opportunity take me towards or away from my ultimate vision? So that ultimate vision is what is critical in this equation. It's like saying, I go back to Alice in Wonderland, when, Alice asked I think it was the Mad Hatter, wasn't it? How do I get to wherever? And she goes, or where do you want to go? And she goes, I don't know. And he says, any road will take you there. I mean, it doesn't matter. And so we're wandering in the wilderness. Have permission to make a destination choice. Now, here's the other side of that. Have permission, if that's no longer something that you find beneficial, change it. It's okay.
Yes. Okay. It is okay. And there's an element of gratitude in this. And I'm curious your take based off of everything we're talking about. I think Roy's question fits here. He's asking, what role does gratitude play?
100%. Gratitude is the basis for everything that we do. It's acknowledging that we have won the lottery 3 times, particularly for those of us that have the privilege of living in an industrial country, is that we were born in this time. We were born, all of the different choices or elements of the sperm and the egg, with the millions and millions of combinations, we won. And then it's in this time period. And then we have this opportunity in these industrial frameworks in the countries we live in where we do have choices. We have opportunities. We don't have to get up and go, how do I run faster than the slowest prey for me to survive one more day? How do I go out and find another can of water for me to be able to survive? So the gratefulness, the gratitude is foundational. But that doesn't mean that we have to then push ourselves down and feel guilty because we have all of these opportunities. I think where it is, it becomes, in my mind, and this is a harsher word, but I feel like it's a responsibility that we've been given a gift. And what are we going to do with the gift that we have been given? And so many people have been given the gift and they have chosen not to open it up.
We're going to do I don't want to say anything, but we have to keep going because these questions keep coming in, and mine too. So by the way, think back, pause right there, hit that pause button and think about what Gary just said. And I really feel that's important. And timely as it is, Rebecca Davidson is in the audience, and she just randomly did a shout out hello. So shout out back to you from us. Very cool. She stops by once in a while, and she is an incredibly inspirational person, Gary. And she's somebody that I always have great conversations with, like I have with you, like this conversation right now. And being able to step into those shoes, I may have jumped metaphors here, but stepping into the shoes that you were talking about, you give everybody a chance to really get a taste for what that is like in a bite-sized fashion, not a whole life, just in 3 days, right? And I say they are intense, amazing, wonderful 3 days. So, and I've been to your Breakthrough Business Mastery program, and I really enjoyed it. And in fact, I'm coming back. So if I could talk about it, but I want to hear you in a couple of sentences. Just tell us what we can get and who your audience is, and would it, so people can say, "Oh, I might need to go find out more about this Gary guy."
I wonder where the shoes were coming in from. So I have no idea. Thank you.
I did skip metaphors. Got it.
And I had just mentioned we have to look at different ways of disseminating ourselves at times. And the 3-day boot camp is one of those things that I had never planned. It wasn't part of the structure that I had thought where we were going. But the next event is coming up July 20, 21, and 22. And it's my 34th event that I produced. And it's almost like, every time I get close to it, I go, I'm never going to do another one. And then we get into it, I do another one. And so it's been a labor of love. But really, it's for entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and business owners that at whatever level they are not receiving the benefits from the investment of time, energy, and money, no pun intended. And we're frustrated because we're working harder. We're putting all of the effort in. We're missing the elements of life of dealing with our families, our children, our grandchildren, whatever it may be. And so we're not truly participating and enjoying the memories, building memories along the way. And so I have built this program around the day one is the psychological and emotional aspects of building a business. And we really dive deep, and it becomes something of that, what I call a foundation day. And Chris Nansky is a 7th-degree black belt. At the end of that day, we do a board breaking for anybody that volunteers. But we pretty much have had 100% participation. Everybody does it. There's your board.
Here's my board.
And so it is something that and in fact, I give a gift. We have photographers there that photograph everyone breaking their boards, and then we give you those pictures. But this is that foundation. Then in day 2 and 3 are all of the techniques and strategies that I've created, and most of them are ones that I have actually created for myself. They're unique to me. One is a time management system. It's a value-based system that overlays anything that anybody else is using, so you don't have to change. Anybody using whatever they're using, they can stay with it. How to reprogram your brain for success using a process of what I call get statements. In fact, that was my 9th book that came out in January called The Power of Get Statements. And get statements is not affirmations, but a literal programming of the reticular cells. It's a group of cells in our brains for what to pay attention to and how to get that done. And it is a very simple process, but the feedback over the last 20, 25 years that I've taught this is phenomenal. And then we get into how to read personalities, how to talk the language of another person, because it's not about us, it's about them. And we get into marketing and branding, and we get into showcasing one-on-one presentations to one-to-many. And we have a few people that actually get on stage and they're able to, showcase. So there's a whole lot that goes on.
And I tell you, the cat's out of the bag. We might as well keep talking about it. When I told Gary I was coming, I said, I have something to learn from you, and I'm not sure what it is yet. I want to see how you run your event. And not only did he do a great job running his event, and it makes me want to go back, he also created a space that allowed all of the little gears that are always firing to fire in a new way, in such a way that I was coming up with ideas all the time. So my 3 days with Gary, and in fact, I got to spend 2 of the 3 days with Gary. So my 2 of the 3 days with Gary sprouted my next planning session. So when I retreat and I come back to business and I think about what's next, this is a really important piece because we forget to think. I'm all about that. That's this think time. This is a phrase that I use all the time. People who listen, you're like, quit talking about thinking. Heck no, we got to keep talking about thinking because not enough people do it.
We don't take the breaks.
Right? We don't slow down. And in fact, Gary and I keep having conversations about marathons and taking time. And he was even telling me, I said, I just got done with a marathon. And he's like, I'm paraphrasing you, Gary. He says, well, good, at least you paced yourself. And I was like, I'm just glad I'm done.
Getting through it.
Yes, you got to get through it. Okay, so we're going to jump back in. And first with this is program 148, Time, Money, and Energy, with our special guest, Gary Barnes. And we have more questions, more questions. Okay, where was I at here? Okay. Johanna is asking, why so many people are asking for somebody else's permission, both in business and in life? Why do they ask somebody else to do something?
Joanna, that's a fantastic question because I don't believe that anybody needs permission to succeed, to step out, to do whatever they choose to do. I think what it is that we have been trained not to. And so we go to school, we there is a process of creating a um, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, what we are taught is to sit down, shut up, regurgitate information, and if we get out of that box at all, we are told we are bad. And so staying into uh, a parameter of acceptance is truly what we have been taught from a little child. And sometimes it comes from a church background, it can come from family backgrounds, it can come from, schooling. One of the stories that we hear a lot is when people turn 40, 50 years old, maybe it's a neurosurgeon, and all of a sudden they go to Taos and they become a potter and they call it a midlife crisis. No, they just had permission to become who they were. And some of this is also a North American phenomenon
Mm,
because of our expectation that every child goes to college, gets a degree, and it's not in the arts, it's not in the services, it's not in the trades. To where the European model is more that it's not that you're bad if you don't go to university. You can go into the arts, you can go into the trades, and your value is just as high as anyone else's. And so that permission has been told to us that if we're making decisions about ourselves, that we're selfish. And so part of this is the mores that were established years and years ago about control.
yes.
And so really it's phenomenal to see when I tell someone I give you permission. And it's really not me giving them permission, but it's giving them permission to give themselves permission.
Somebody needs to model that and reflect that for them. Yes.
Because they don't know that it's even possible.
I'm learning that. And in fact, I'm experiencing that. I'm figuring out I've been sitting on one side of the coin, and really there's an edge that you get to walk to straddle both. And how cool is it when you get to the other side? Because those are more than light bulb moments.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, how many
Yeah.
times have we heard, why are you not playing big? And
Yes.
whatever that means. Or really what I would like to, the word that I would use is bigger. Because it doesn't
Wow.
mean that we have to get on a national stage or get on TV, become Oprah or whatever. But sometimes we have been, said, well, this is your place, your strata. You need to be here because that's who you are. And unless they have that permission from an external source, they don't know that that's even possible.
There's so much that we learn from those closest to us as we're growing up. And then there's so much more that we have to learn from others, and a whole bunch of unlearning in the process. And knowing that and thinking about that, we have a question from Carol. She wants to know your advice for teenagers, how to transition into adulthood.
You know, Carol, we have adult sons. They're so totally different, all three of them. And I think the thing that we did was to allow them, when they were even younger than that, we had a little ritual, and I would say, who's a winner? And they would throw their hands up in the air and say, I am. Now, they didn't understand what that was. And then we gave them those experiences of what is winning. See, one of my Garyisms again is winning doesn't always mean coming in first.
Right.
This is not my competition with someone else. This is my competition with myself and the values that I'm receiving. And in their adult lives, it was allowing them and giving them permission, asking questions. What is it that you really want to do? And I would get this, well, I can't do it. Well, who told you you can't do it? Well, so and so, this, and I'm going, well, how could you do it? If you could, what would be the process? and finding out really what is exciting for them if they're wanting to learn an instrument, if they're wanting to go into business. I was with someone yesterday that their 9-year-old daughter has a business and she's making like $1,000 a year. So exciting, to see these young entrepreneurs that, by the time they're 20, they're going to, be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is that old concept too. What does it take to retire? And in the age group that I'm in, it used to be said, well, you have to be a certain age to retire. And the .com guys and gals back in the 80s said, no, it takes money.
Well, right. And exactly. And I know there's also this element of education. And I'm going to bring this up here because we are non-traditionally educated in this house. The adults in this house are non-traditionally educated. And there's a whole bunch of stuff behind that. This concept of what the path is, really question it. That's my thought. And not only question it as the parent, also allow openly and safely the children to question it, because they're going to come up with things and question things that you're not going to like.
Well, and for Carol, something that you could do is sit down with your children and say, if you had a Christmas list that could be fulfilled, you knew that anything you put on this list could happen, what would you put on it? What would you do? Where would you go? What would be fulfilling for you? And start getting a conversation from them about, golly, where's my interest? What is it that I want to be on the stages of New York? Okay, great. What is that? Instead of being a protective cocoon saying, honey, I know you're good, but you're not that good. And, we have that tendency to want to protect. But here's the part that's really more important is to support.
Yes.
When my boys were growing into their teens, I had this philosophy that I wanted to be close enough that when they fell, I could catch them. But it changed. What I really learned was I wanted to be close enough to when they fell, I could help them up. Mm-hmm. Because it was in that hitting the ground, having those experiences is where the learning that, the true connection, do they really want it? Is it something they were willing to pay the price for? There was a video just recently that came out with Will Smith. And if you've not been following Will Smith's videos lately, go find it on YouTube. I mean, this man is brilliant. I love this guy. But he said that, more times than not, every day somebody comes up and says, I want to be an actor just like you and have your success and have all the things that you have around you. And he looks at him and says, are you willing to pay the price that I did to get here? And they will look around and go, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, exactly. You want that snap of the finger, that automatic connection to success or a magic path. And literally there isn't one.
Never.
It's a process.
Time, money, and energy all woven together. That's a word I like. I like to weave things together because it's usually never one. We could start with one. All three are necessary. And we're seeing that in the conversations and the stories that you've been telling us.
So let me ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
I'm turning it around. Of those three things, which of those three elements do you believe is the most valuable?
I think they're equal. I think it depends on your work style. For me personally, I would always start with energy, some sort of action, some spark of an idea that would take an action to go. I do know that, some people are like, okay, so I need a task list. So this is going to cost this. And then when I do this, it's going to make this much money. So then I have this so that I can make that decision so that I can have this much money. So it's more of a structure piece. And then the other one for time, it could be the same thing with time. I need 5 hours to do this. I need 2 hours to do that. But it also could just be freedom time. I am doing these things to have more time to not be scheduled for me.
So here's my belief.
Okay. I can't wait to hear. Because I think they're all valuable. And
they're all valuable. But the one in my mind that's most valuable is time.
Okay.
Because it's the only asset that's not duplicatable. We can make more money. We can create more energy with vitamins and exercise or whatever it is. We're having rest, putting that into our equation. But once we spend time. See, that's the challenge too. People spend time, they don't invest time. So they're not expecting a return on the investment of time, which translates into money and energy on the other side. And
Yes.
so when we look at time as well, I'm just going to, so in business, somebody wants to go to coffee to meet you. Well, you have a half an hour to drive there, a half an hour back. It would it be as beneficial to do a Zoom call and get that hour back into your day to invest in something else that maybe doesn't even have anything to do with business? It's totally around, rejuvenating you, reading a book, going for a walk, having some time with your family, your spouse, your loved one,
Yes.
your significant other. It doesn't matter. How do you want to build the movie that's called your life?
Ah, that's interesting. And so now I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this from the money side because it takes time to spend money. So we have a commonality there. And I'm thinking about the energy side, and the actions that are taking also not only take time but could also make time to do other things. So this is kind of a neat thing to puzzle on, and I think that I shouldn't even say I think. I recognize your willingness to say, "Hey, when we invest our time, however we choose to do it, when we invest our time."
Well, and that's why here I have anytime I'm speaking or whatever, the my responsibility and obligation is to give a value for those that are with us because that time that they're with us now, they can never get back.
Yes, it's gone. It's done. And okay, so we got to talk about motivation because we started with that at the beginning too. And I have this random note here that says motivation. And you said, we're going to make sure I remember this. We talk about so much. I could be making things up and sticking it in Gary's mouth, but he won't let me do that, everybody. He's going to make sure I get it right. And that is that we must motivate ourselves.
Yes.
Our motivation comes internally. Now, I agree with an and. So I want to hear more.
Well, is it an and or a but? I almost heard a but in there.
Well, it could have been a but. And that's another, I work on making ands because we can build on those instead of closing things down. So I'm an and girl more than a but girl. Oh, sorry, everybody. If you just heard that little bit, that doesn't make any sense. Nonetheless, motivation, because there's this really cool quote that I always come back to, Gary. You either are the light or you reflect the light. And it took me a really long time to grapple with that. And I grappled with it because I'm like, but I'm both. I'm both. I'm both. Until I was having a conversation one day and it came up. And Annabeth, the woman who was speaking with me, and I brought this up, she says to me, yeah, because when you reflect the light, not all, you have to bring that light into yourself to be able to give it back. And so I thought that was a really cool explanation. And I do believe that motivation comes internally. Me personally, I have to go out, find some energy to bring it back to be able to be motivated. And some people are really good about doing this internal motivation thing where it just kind of comes out of them. I'm so in awe of that.
Well, there's a root word inside of the word motivation, and that's motive,
Yeah.
which takes us back to the ultimate vision. What inspires us? What gets us out of bed? Um, I have told my family, and I'm telling a story on myself that I've never done to a public audience before, that if I didn't have my children and my wife, I probably wouldn't do as much as I do because they're my motivation. The things that I'm doing, I'm wanting to provide and give the abilities to do certain things. And so, yeah, we have what is that motive that is around us? I use a lot too, where we say there's nothing new under the sun. And I use the illustration of a gemstone. And the reason I was thinking about
I
this
like
is where you were just saying we take in the light. But in a gemstone, when it's cut, it goes through facets. And then it refracts and reflects and comes out a different facet. It never comes out where it came in. And so it takes in light so we can take in nourishment, we can take in information, we can take in the joy, the benefits, all of the things that are out there. Because again, it's not about us. I see, for me, I'm a conduit. That doesn't take anything away from me because as it passes through me, it takes on a unique spectrum because it did go through me, just like it does for everyone else out there. And stepping into your light, and this is something we deal at the boot camp, we deal with celebrity and how to get our ego out of the equation. And so what it is though is that I am not better than, I'm different from. And when we allow ourselves to stand into our light and others are able to see us, then we're able to benefit them. If we don't step into our light, the only thing that happens is that light will go out. And we don't have the ability to take anybody else's light from them. It's not even part of the equation.
Unless you're given permission, which we tend to do, right? Going back to the other piece of that, of we don't give ourselves permission to receive. And when we don't give ourselves permission to receive, we're giving somebody else permission to not let us be us.
Right.
And so I think they're very directly tied. And by the way, I'm so excited you're talking about gemstones. Total. Now I'm like, ooh, shiny object, gems, rocks. Let's talk about that. No, this is the Voice of Bold Business Radio, and it's hashtag VBB Radio. And these questions keep coming in. I'm telling you what, Gary, I am glad we're fitting as much as we are into this conversation. Pam's asking, do you have a book or two that made a big difference in your life that you would recommend to us?
One that just popped in my head that's an older book. It's called The Go-Getter.
I love The Go-Getter. It's not, if it's not here, it's right over there.
And so it's very thin. I like thin books. The Go-Getter is one of the old ones. I mean, the old standbys, the Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You have, here's another one, Enthusiasm Makes the Difference. And that is by Norman Vincent Peale.
Okay.
So the word enthusiasm, if you break down the words, people have known me as a wordsmith. And I have trivia coming out my ears. But the root meaning of the word enthusiasm is exus, which means God, and ism means within. The word enthusiasm literally means God within. And so that excitement, that is something that was God given to us, no matter if you believe in a higher source, whatever you call God. This is not about theology and religiosity and all of that. But we're talking about and this is going back to the question around gratitude, is that we've been given this gift and getting excited about that. And your excitement is that magnet that people want to be around. So those are a few books. I can give you a whole list. In fact, Jess, in the back of your action guide from the boot camp is a whole reading list of books that I recommend.
Now,
and so
do you mind if I take a picture of it? Because look, I've got it right.
Absolutely.
I even know exactly where it's at.
Because I know that I'm going to miss some books out there, but there's some really tremendous ones.
And he gave us a movie list too, everybody. That's good. I love that. Because we all experience different ways. I also like to read. I like to listen to books as well. I know some people like to watch. And so that was very cool that you included all the learning modalities in that. By the way, that is something that when we do, we can make a connection to get to the other pieces, because we all have our strength. And when we play to the strength, we get to have harder conversations or more resistance around things. They become a little bit easier. I love that God within comment about enthusiasm or source. Maybe we'll call it the source within to be better for everybody. But that's beautiful. It made me think of something else. And of course, we got distracted by the book question, which I'm super excited about. Nonetheless, it'll come back or it won't, and it's not supposed to be here. It went into a bubble and it floated away. We shall see. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about motivation, the 80% of what's between our ears, the psychology of different things. We started from scarcity, moved into gratitude, and have talked about everything in between. What do you think about business plans? And how big is your business plan? Is it like 6 months? Is it 1 year? Is it 10 years? What does that look like? And how does it fit into everything that we're talking about so far?
A business plan, a formal business plan, 3 to 5 years as far as a general concept. And the actual plan is 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. The reason being, and I know I'm contrarian to a lot of people that do what I do, but I have found that we cannot think about things beyond 18 months. So the example I use a lot is that if you think, or part of your business plan is to lose weight because you want to be at a certain outfit for an event, but it's 3 years from now. When do you think you're going to start engaging in that piece of the project?
Not now.
It won't be now.
Time,
There's,
time, time, time.
there's no urgency.
Yeah.
There's no value perceived in that. So working within that 12 to 18 months, we can conceive and now we can engage. And there's enough of an urgency because time is clicking now that we are able to engage at least into, oh, another book is Eat
Yeah.
That Frog by Brian Tracy.
Oh, yeah.
Eat
Hmm.
that frog. It's doing the most distasteful thing first in the morning. So whatever the thing that you really it's calling that client, get an answer about that product or service, whatever it is, do it first. The rest of the day gets easier. But Brian, that book is phenomenal for process. But yeah, that 12 to 18 months, and really the three things that I would suggest, really to concentrate on are three elements in your business. That's be seen. The first real key here is people got to know that you're there. They don't become that best kept secret. They'll build it and they will come. Model doesn't work. How many people have websites and they have Facebook and they have whatever, but nobody sees them. They don't know that they're even there. Be willing to step into your life. The second thing is to be safe. As you engage, have just eliminate your agenda. Be able to connect and be able to, be in a place that you are totally free from manipulating an end result. Being here today, I literally have no agenda being with Jess and everyone else other than to, complement what Jess is doing and in her mission. And so, people can really feel when you have that dollar signs in the eyes and there's an end agenda that you have, particularly at networking events. And then the third element is be relevant. If you have a product and service that's relevant and timely, it's not necessarily just what people need, but it's what they have transcended to what people want.
Hmm.
I call it sell the sizzle, provide the steak. People, when you go to a Mexican restaurant and you order fajitas, the server will come out of the kitchen and they will walk the entire room, even though they've almost walked by you,
Hmm.
because they're selling the sizzle, they're the aroma, the experience. But they provide the value, the hardcore promises fulfilled at the end of the journey.
Hmm. Oh, I have so many things. I like have half sentences in my brain bouncing around between my ears, and none of them are making sense, which
I
is
don't know,
okay.
I don't know that that's good.
Well, there's just too many things starting in there, so it's just fine, just fine. It just takes me a minute. And I was going to come back to time somehow with this, and I don't remember. I don't remember. So we're going to just move. We're going to just move right through. It's interesting that you talk about, though, yes, the 1 and the 3 year plan and the 18-month concept, and oh duh, priorities. See, I knew it would come back. The other one hasn't come back yet. It's still floating around up there, but this one came back. Priorities. What I hear you saying is it depends on how much we value it, how much value it gives us, and our willingness to put it first at and do what it takes.
Well, and to stop just being busy.
Mhm.
For the rest of the week, when you see someone, ask them how they're doing, and if they say busy, follow up with what.
Yes.
And so much of the time, we fill up our time to fulfill being busy, but it's not in having the priorities of what we choose to put in that time that's going to give you the end result that we want.
Right.
Because here's another reality is the things that are actually going to produce the results that we really desire are the ones with the biggest risk. The things that we don't like
Mm.
being told no, we don't like being, but I love no's because I no longer have to invest my time with that particular engagement because
Yes.
it's not the right timing for them or it's not the right product or that's whatever it is. So it frees them up. It also frees me up. And so it's just part of the puzzle. And in the end, business is a numbers game.
Always. It's always a numbers game. And you're right about the risk. And I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating how people don't want to be told no, yet I'm in the same boat that you are. It's, well, how do we overcome obstacles and how do we get those addressed before we even get to the part where we ask? And I'm like, do you just like me? Because we got to start there. If you don't like being around me, we might as well just not have this conversation. There's that. Then there's another piece that's like, oh, good, you said no. Now, if I really want your business, I must check in with my motives and what's motivating me and say, why? What is making this thing so necessary for me? Because if we're going after it for the wrong reason, or not, maybe not the highest value reason, then it's probably worth letting it go. And you're right. Then just the fear piece, the fear of, oh, I don't want to be told no, we've got to be accepted. We all have all these millions of friends everywhere on the internet. But if I ask, and then the worst one is, I'm just not even going to ask because I can't even handle it. I can't even think about it.
Right. We're just going to get busy. We're going to clean our desk. We're going to organize. We're going to do whatever. And while those things are not bad,
Yeah.
but what is it that's going to give us the potential for the result that we're wanting in our businesses?
And if we're not getting that, we may need to reevaluate our values, what we have deemed necessary to create value that somebody would want to buy our product or us or whatever, our department, our service, whatever it might be. How tricky.
And it's for them to invest in what we have.
Yes.
That invest still goes to the other side.
It goes both ways.
So one of the things that I have really keyed into over the last few years is, what do people really buy, invest in when they attach to our product or service? And what that has come for me is they're buying borrowed belief. They're buying the belief that what we have to offer is actually going to do what we say it's going to do. So it's the person's ready if the timing is right. So in essence, it's still not about us, it's about them. And when we give up the focus of results and focus on activity, now we're in the flow. We're not going, well, it's not working well. That doesn't mean we don't adjust. There's another concept I use is launch and adjust. But when we go, well, that person didn't buy, well, okay, and it's about them.
Yep. We've been talking a lot about intention, and we've been talking some about goals. So how do they relate?
Goals and intention, it's really about focus of the end destination. So we could have good intentions and we could have actually goals goals is a piece of the puzzle to what I call vision. So the three parts for me is your dream and wish. Those are the things that, well, I wish I could go to Switzerland, or I would love to, that's your raw materials, the things that, if you had that Christmas list, and then when you transition into a goal, you put a date of accomplishment on that item. That's when that item, you have an intention for it to become a reality. And then you go to, and the magical part is vision. Is where you take that and you're actually living it now in a future tense in the present day. And that goes somewhat back to the get statement process that we talked about earlier, but making it real. And so it's not something that, well, if the stars align and I'm lucky, it's going to happen. No, what if we step back and then we create the action steps? Remember, it's the action, not the result. The action steps that's going to give the not just the possibility, but the probability of that coming to fruition.
And that, I did a better pause this time. There's one more question. We have time for one more question. And this is my question, the voice of Bold Business Radio. I want to know why it's bold. Why is it bold? Or what makes it bold to critically analyze and evaluate the use of time, money, and energy?
Okay, say that one more time real quick.
What makes it bold to critically evaluate the use of time, money, and energy?
The word bold is interesting to me. It's courage. Courage, when I was growing up, John Wayne, you can tell the age group that I'm in. John Wayne was my hero, is my hero. There was no fear. And so I really believe that courage was the absence of fear. And being bold is engaging courage in spite of fear. It's not the absence, but action in the presence of fear. It's stepping forward into the unknown, because everything we do, it doesn't matter if it's me, you, whoever it is out there, that next step, we don't know. We really, it's that faith that there's going to be something. I love the Indiana Jones. I think it was where he was stepping out and was going for the goblet,
Yes.
and he took that one step, and the platform appeared for his foot to land on. But he had to take that step when he couldn't see the value. He couldn't see the net that was there. But it was in that process of stepping out that you could see that next step. And that's something else, is that we don't need to see all of the process all the way along. We just need to know that next one or two steps to get us to where we're wanting to go.
Ladies, gentlemen, kids, adults, whatever we are labeling ourselves as today, you heard it here with Gary Barnes. This is the voice of Bold Business Radio, program 148. You'll find all the program notes, all kinds of extra goodies that we were talking about along the way in the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P148. That's voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 148. I'm telling you, you're watching live, you're listening to our podcast. Tell somebody who needs this information today. It's the conversations we have, it's how we go about doing what we do that make us the leaders and define what leading is effectively and how we use our leadership qualities today, tomorrow, and model for who's coming after us. And maybe the people we don't even know yet, right? I mean, all of these things fit together. So subscribe to, stop by YouTube, give us a review, stop by Facebook Live, give us a review. Make sure to get us on your podcast platform so that you're listening on iTunes or iHeartRadio or Stitcher or wherever else you prefer to listen. We got your back. Get this, voice of Bold Business Radio. And it's important to choose wisely what you do with your time, your money, and your energy.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.